Hello, it's Tammy Goen, HSP coach. Welcome to my show, Surviving to Thriving, where I'm going to take a deep dive each week into high sensitivity, what that means, how to manage it, how to get support. My goal is to help as many highly sensitives move from that place of merely surviving, which means probably feeling out of touch, like there's something wrong with you or needs to be fixed, not getting that support, the understanding, the validation, and just feeling overwhelmed by life. And my goal is to help you move through and past that, to be able to embrace that trait, get all of those needs met, and really let that trait, which really is a gift, to help you thrive and just get the most out of everything in the world. So I would like to start with today, since this is my first show, just kind of giving you a bit of a background on me, sharing my story, and talking a little bit about how you know if you are highly sensitive or someone that you know might be. And so to start with, I'll just share myself a little bit. My journey into learning about high sensitivity started maybe 12, 13 years ago. And I was experiencing this altercation, this situation with a couple of friends, and I was feeling very, very unsupported, disrespected, misunderstood. And a person who was helping me along that journey said, hey, check this out online. And at the time it was 16 traits of highly sensitive people. So I pull that up on the computer and immediately start checking off all of the boxes. 14 out of those 16 traits was me. And it was the most amazing day because I suddenly realized, okay, this isn't just me, or there wouldn't be an inventory online that I could go and take. You know, someone had spent a lot of time figuring this out and created this inventory. And here I was taking it and realizing, yeah, it's not just me. There's all these other people. I didn't know how many at the time, about 20% of the population, maybe more now. And it was just the most validating, probably a validating moment of my life, really, to recognize that some of these things that I was experiencing that I just saw written down in that format had a reason. You know, there was a reason that I reacted in these ways and heard all of these comments from people throughout my whole life. And so that began my journey of saying, okay, what is this high sensitivity thing? I have a master's in counseling, and nothing about sensitivity ever came up in that. And as it turns out, the primary researcher for all of this, Elaine Aron, was doing her research while I was in grad school. And so it wasn't available, and I had just never come across this term. So I took a deep dive, figuring out as much as I possibly could. And then in the midst of all of that, I launched into the coaching realm because I had done counseling before, got burned out, not surprisingly, because I was not aware of the trait and didn't set that up just right. But I did come back full circle to wanting to help in that realm of emotions and, you know, just trying to navigate life through as a coach, and really began my journey as an HSP coach when I started realizing that all of these people who were finding me, probably 95% of them, were highly sensitive, whether they knew it or not. And that they were having experiences where they'd say, well, I've had coaching or counseling in the past, and I could only get so far because I just didn't feel heard or understood. So I realized that was really a niche, and that there is a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of lack of knowledge or understanding about the trait. And so I'm hoping through this channel, this program, my show, I can help as many people as possible to understand the trait, but also to know that there are amazing things that we can do to make this just a non-issue, really. I mean, it's part of who we are. It's a real core value, not even value, it's a personality trait. And next week, I'm going to go really deep into what is high sensitivity, what it is not, how do we get support, those kinds of things. But just know that it really is just part of who you are. You are wired this way. If you are highly sensitive, or if there's someone that you know that you're thinking about as you're watching this, and they are having these responses that I'm going to be talking about, it's because they're wired that way, not because it's a choice. And if there's nothing wrong, it's just, I like to talk about it as being like left-handed, right-handed. You're highly sensitive or you're not highly sensitive. And even within that sensitivity realm, there's a whole range. So being aware of that is really key. So I hope at least today that you'll take that with you, knowing that it's the way you're wired. It does not need to be fixed. What we can do is learn to embrace it, learn to work with it, and how to share that with other people so that it isn't such a burden and doesn't make things more challenging. So back to my experiences, when I started looking in my past and immediately just being able to reframe a lot of my experiences, knowing that, oh, I come from this place of high sensitivity. And typically people who are highly sensitive experience things like becoming very overwhelmed by the immediate environment, sounds, smells, touches, tastes. I mean, it can be everything. Doesn't necessarily affect everyone that way, but that can be a big part of it, or just the energy space of the world around you, or the greater expanse of humanity, and that's the plight that we're in right now, dealing with everything. All of that can be just really intense and overwhelming. And emotions can be really intense, and they can either come out in a huge, expressive way, or we can shove those inside. And so we're aware on a very minute level. Maybe we're not even in touch with them at all, but they're boiling under there because we experience everything at a really, really deep level. So we also tend to be aware of things that other people don't notice, or be affected by things that others aren't affected by. So if you're highly sensitive in your lifetime, you've probably heard many times people saying, it's no big deal, just let it go. And you're thinking, wow, that would be really great. How do I do that? And that person is able to do it because they're probably not highly sensitive. So, having those reactions that we can't let go of, or just making really intense meaning of things that other people think are just really no big deal. So if those all sound familiar, it's possible that you are highly sensitive, or that's this person that you're thinking of, this might resonate with. And, when I look back in my childhood, there's so many things stand out, but one of the things that is typical for highly sensitives is being not just caregivers, but, just needing to help to our own detriment, and not setting boundaries, and feeling those energies and not knowing what to do with them. And so when I was about 13, I would say, my parents divorced when I was 10, and we would go and visit, my dad on the weekends. And at one point, just before I would go to visit my dad, I would have this incredible stomach ache. And it didn't seem to make sense for anything. And I tried to just downplay it for a while, but my mom kind of caught on at some point after 2 or 3 times of going and just feeling really off the whole time that I was there sharing time with my dad. And my mom, finally said, hey, what's going on? And I talked about it and recognized that I was concerned, I was worried that my dad was really unhappy. And that wasn't okay for me energetically. It just didn't feel good. And so I was really tied in with that worry, that fear, that concern for him. And as soon as we brought that to his attention, and he took ownership for that and said, hey, I'm okay, and I'm in charge of me, and you don't need to do that. So glad that happened. I immediately was fine, and I never had another stomach ache. So that was an indicator of, which I didn't recognize at the time, of course, of like overextending my feelings and my compassion and my need for everyone to be okay, which is definitely part of the trait, wanting everything to be just right, no feelings to be hurt, ours or other people's, wanting everyone to have what they need, all of that kind of thing. So so that was a real eye-opener looking back, my childhood, going, oh yeah, okay, I understand why that happened. And then one of my favorite stories that everyone tends to love is when I was about 15, I believe. We'd had some kind of a gathering. So my dad was out of the family by then, out of the home. So it was some kind of a girls type event. I'm not exactly sure, but my sister had, I think, had been there, but she wasn't there anymore. And it was my mom and my two grandmothers. And we were all just hanging out in the family room talking. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to go hang out in my room for a little while. So I left, I went back, walked down the hall. And as I walked through the doorway, just didn't even get all the way through, because I'm standing in the doorway of my room. I stopped and I just felt like something was off. Something was just not right, not necessarily bad, but I was like, what is this? What is going on? So I took a little scan of my whole room. I was very neat, tidy. So, everything had its place. Everything seemed to be fine. And I didn't know why I would be having this experience. So then I took a deep breath and I looked a little more closely, and then I was drawn right next to me as I walked in. I had a stereo cabinet, and it was just a stereo like on a table. And right to the side, I had a few little figurines on each side. And I just knew as soon as I looked over there, two of the figurines had actually been reversed in their position. And this was significant because even when I dusted or I did anything, they always were in the same spot. That was just one of my quirky things. And so they were in different spots, and that didn't make any sense to me. My sister didn't ever get into my stuff, and nothing was broken, and I could have just said, oh, well, that's interesting. Let it go. I couldn't let it go. I just had to figure it out. I had to figure out what in the world was happening. I tried to let it go. I walked in my room. I sat down. Nope. So, what am I going to do? I'm going to go say something to my mom. So I walked back down the hall, and, they're talking. And as soon as I get all the way into the room, it was like dead silence. And my mom said, what's up, Tim? And I said, well, I know this is really kind of weird, because I was feeling very weird about this whole thing. And I said, and I explained the situation. And instead of any expectation that I had of what would happen by saying that, none of that happened. What happened, they all three bust out laughing. And so I'm standing there feeling like, oh, I'm the brunt of a joke. Okay, this is great. And then they, calmed down and explained how my mom had been talking at another time, apparently, or maybe when everybody got there and I was somewhere else, I'm not sure, but talked about how I was so sensitive to things that she could make the tiniest little changes in things and I would recognize it and I would know it. And my grandparents, grandmothers, they said, oh no, it's, she can't be that sensitive. She goes, no, it will. So this was a test. At some point when I wasn't in the room, she just chose that one simple little, switched those things around. And of course I knew it, because just energetically, I just knew something was changed. So those are, two big childhood experiences that led me to, as I go back and look and say, oh, okay, well, I understand all of that now. And I'm very, very fortunate that in my family, I was very supported, not for the trait, because it wasn't anything that was understood, but for my quirks. I had a lot of Tammy quirks that were just, I didn't get laughed at. People would kind of laugh with me, but no, they didn't quite get it, but it was all fine. And I was very supportive. And that has allowed me to, which I'll talk about in another time in terms of our resources, as highly sensitives, if we have a challenging background, we can develop a lot of unhelpful coping strategies, but if we have a supportive one, then we can develop a lot of helpful ones. So thankfully, I was in that category of, a fairly supportive, loving childhood. And so I did develop a lot of good coping strategies, which I will be sharing with all of you. So I hope that gives you kind of a feel for some of the experiences that you can have as a highly sensitive that might resonate, where you say, oh, this sounds like me. And, like another one in terms of the sound, it tends to be really difficult for us to tune things out. You hear that all the time. Let it go. Don't pay attention. Oh, it's no big deal. Just ignore it. And if you're used to saying, yeah, I don't know how to do that, that doesn't work for me, then this will make sense. So one time when I was in college, I went out with some friends to a bar that had pool tables, and we were shooting pool. And we'd been waiting in the front for a little while before we had to be seated, and we were having little mini conversations. Then we moved out to where the tables were. They piped in this really, really loud, heavy metal music, which was not my thing anyway. And there were, of course, multiple conversations going all around. There's the crack of the pool balls. There was people running back and forth, delivering drinks. I mean, just like all of these things happening, which on average is pretty typical for a bar or a restaurant. And I made it through like half of a game, and I just had to excuse myself and say, I'm sorry, I can't, the music is just driving me crazy. And they're like, oh, tune it out. And no, I can't do that. And just so much going on all at once. I just, it was sad that I couldn't experience what everyone else was going through, but I just couldn't do it. It was way overload. I was just super anxious, and my whole body was tight, and I just said, I just have to go. So that's another example of, environmental noise, lights, sounds, all of that kind of stuff can be a really, really big factor. So if any of those things sound familiar, if those resonate with you, you might just be highly sensitive, or maybe that's sounding like someone you know. And on my website, I do have a quiz that you can take to see how that, shows up for you. 28 questions, I think, maybe, where, it just helps you to identify. It's very validating if you can say, oh, I've struggled with these kinds of things my whole life. And now I say, oh, okay, some people do that and not just me. Oh, no, lots of other people do this. And you start looking at that whole inventory. It's just this sense of validation that there is a reason, and it's not just me. And in this show, I will be sharing all kinds of, more information about that, what to do with it, what it means, and how to share it with other people, how to get that support that you need. So if you have any questions, please do reach out. And my website is Coach Tammy Goen, as written on my little Zoom screen there, CoachTammyGoen.com. And there's an inventory right there, a little button right on the front you can click on, and you can go take that quiz. There's also a page of the course that I have. I just launched recently a really in-depth signature course all about high sensitivity and how to manage going from surviving to thriving. So that is on there as well. And of course, you can always contact me if you have questions. You can go to my Linktree, which is just Tammy Goen at Linktree, and have all of my resources on there. And I just wish you like all the best. And if anything else from today, to take away, just that recognition that it's not just you. You do not need to be fixed. And I am going to help you along that path of learning more about the sensitivity and what to do with it, with the tools to develop. I'll be, giving you some things to practice even. I'll be interviewing some folks who have some good perspectives on how to, maneuver through the non-highly sensitive world that we are living in. And I welcome you, and thank you for joining me in my show. And I look forward to more to come. And next time we will definitely dive right into all the what's, whys, how the things, and dispelling some myths about sensitivity. So take care, sensitive souls, and I will see you next time.